the terrified man out by his heels and hauled him away. Probably to the tower, she thought nervously, as she was led into the audience room and up to the chair where the king was seated. A cleric of some sort stood on the king's right, while Archbishop Arundel, Lord Chancellor since Bishop Wycomb's retirement, stood on his left. Emma tried to staunch the unpleasant thoughts that ran through her mind on seeing the prelate. She did not care for the new Chancellor. He seemed far too arrogant and sly to her. Her opinion was not softened by the expression on his face as he took in her presence now. It seemed he did not even need to hear her complaint before deciding it a waste of the king's time. Emma was working herself into a fine temper over that fact when she suddenly realized that what she would say would most likely prove him correct. Begad, this had indeed been a mistake. "Lady Emmeline, your Majesty." Grasping at the distraction, Emma turned to watch the steward leave after he announced her, then immediately wished she had not. This was her first visit to court. She was completely ignorant of the proper etiquette in most things, so she had been simply following the example of those around her. However, the steward was bowing his way backward out of the room, leading her to believe she would be expected to curtsy her way backward out of the room as well. If that were the case, she very much feared she would make a horrible bungle of it. "Lady Emmeline?" Giving a guilty start, she turned abruptly to the three men before her and dropped a curtsy, staying in that pose until the king bid her rise. "You are Rolf's cousin?" The king's voice was gently curious as he looked her over. "Aye, Your Majesty." Emma shifted nervously and swallowed the little ball of apprehension that had lodged itself at the back of her throat. She briefly considered discarding her plan and excusing herself, but feared such behaviour might find her being dragged out of the room by her feet, as the earlier unfortunate had been. A most distressing image. Rolf would be horribly embarrassed. "Lord Rolf asked that I grant you an audience." Emma bit her lip and nodded. The king waited patiently for a moment, then raised his eyebrows slightly. "What did you wish to see me about, my lady?" Feeling a blush bloom beneath her skin, Emma let her gaze skitter over the two men flanking him. She had never considered that there might be someone else present at her audience. Truthfully, she hadn't really considered the audience itself at all. She had simply determined to persuade Rolf to acquire one for her. Now she stood before the king and these two other men with little in her poor addled mind but horror over what she had gotten herself into. She was nervous, of course, and had no problem at all in determining where to place the blame for it. It was the Archbishop's fault, she decided, giving that man a firm glare now. While the king was peering at her, with nothing more than gentle inquisitiveness, and the cleric looked simply curious, Arundel's expression was becoming more scathing with each second that she delayed. It made her nervous. "My lady?" Emma's gaze slid back to the king at once. He really was not at all what she had pictured. She had known he was not very old, being perhaps 4 years older than herself. And despite living so far away from court and all of its gossip, she was aware of the stories of his sadness and gloom over the loss of his wife this past year. It was said he had loved Queen Anne deeply, a rarity in made matches. Still, she had expected him to have more presence. Truthfully, Emma found the Archbishop much more formidable. That gentleman's expression at the moment was enough to shrivel.